So if a concept artist like Emmanuel Shui, who worked on all of the Star Wars movies and Ready Player One, when he finished that digital art, he said, "This is my one of one that he can sell on super rare." That is suddenly worth money. Whereas before, your JPEG was as good as mine. That is disruptive for the individual artists.
James Zhang sits down with Jon Radoff for a fireside chat about the metaverse. James is an experienced executive and advisor in the gaming and tech sector. He is the founder and CEO of Concept Art House, a leading creative service company for the gaming industry, with over 20 years of experience in games and tech. Let's jump into the conversation.
James, so awesome to have you. This is a momentous week to have you as well. Like, there's been some news, right? And I can't wait to tell everyone. And we're going to talk about NFTs and digital collectibles, art, games with NFTs. We're going to cover all of that today, but we can't miss sort of the recent news with you. So, Concept Art House, what's going on?
Hey, John, great to be here, man. Yeah, you just hit on all of my favorite things to talk about, nonstop. Yeah, we just raised a $25 million Series A, which is a great raise for us, led by Dapper Labs, Fabric, who backed Axie Infinity, and Animoca Brands, Gala Games, and a whole bunch of other great people.
That's a legit raise. So what's 25 million going to help you do? What's the vision?
Well, we're in the middle of acquiring a company right now, which is exciting. We have a big blockbuster title. It's a huge sports brand, and we have a bunch of other projects that we're excited. It's growth, man. I tend to spend about 15 of that 25 in the next year or so.
All right.
Hey, this quick rewards the goal. You know what I'm talking about. So this is an exciting race right now.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people have heard about Concept Art House due to some of the recent work with like Frank Miller. And by the way, I didn't buy the Sin City Collector's Edition just for this interview. That's been on my shelf for quite a long time. So I consider me a super fan of what you're doing over there. That's awesome. I can't afford some of the stuff that you're selling with Frank Miller, but I'm excited about it.
I'm going to send you something cool. All right. Very cool. Signed by Frank.
All right. I'm not going to say no to that. But so tell people about that, because I think people can connect with that because he's epic.
Yeah. Well, so my company is Concept Art House. We raised money behind our new division, Crypto Art House. Concept Art House has been making art for a long time, 13 years, man. We've helped ship, by my account, over 1,000 games, right? So we've been creating digital art for years and years and years. When we saw the NFT space happening, around January this year, everybody wanted art. So that was very exciting for us. But we wanted to do something that was going to honor, artists. And like you, I've been a long time fan of Frank Miller. I remember reading Dark Knight Returns, life-changing. Anyways, just so happens that we got into this point. And, we're going to talk about NFTs, right? But you think about what Frank has meant to comic books. And he's the guy that made Batman Dark. He's a writer and an artist, and he's one of the few IP holders that own 300 in Sin City. So we were really honored when he chose us to help him be more known in the digital universe that we live in today. So our NFT collection was honoring Frank and his legacy. So every piece he had to approve of. In many cases, we took his personal art and digitized it so it could be an authentic NFT, and it paid off. So we had an NFT. It made a little bit of news. We had one unique one of one. It's a key moment called "I Love You, Nancy Callahan" that sold for $840,000, and that's with our partners at Gala Games.
Yeah,
so it's very cool. It's like a moment come to life from his work.
James, I've got to imagine that part of how you connected with someone like him really just must come from the authenticity of your company. You're an artist. Thanks, you weren't someone who just swooped into NFTs and cut a licensing deal. You've been at this for a while. Could we just maybe take a moment to let everybody know a little bit of your personal story coming into this?
Oh, thanks, John. Well, so I'm 45 years old, and for over 40 of those years, I've been drawing. So I am a
Mhm.
concept artist. I started my career at LucasArts. I did a ton of games back in the early days, PlayStation 2. So I was doing spaceships, monsters, aliens. I keep some of this near me to remind, like, I still do art. um,
Love it.
but yeah, I was a successful concept artist for the first 5 years of my career. And I mean, I was a geek before that. So yeah, I have my Frank Miller, I have my comic collection. Pretty much all the things I was the most passionate about, D&D, video games, I got to work on as an artist. And hopefully we didn't lose our soul along the way as we scaled up an art company where now I employ like 80 artists, right? So
This is a pretty amazing time to be an artist with NFTs and the collection economies that are happening. Like, what's going
yeah,
on here? Because it used to be, I mean, I think if you look back a few years ago, like art would be for a lot of studios. I'm not saying the ones that were your customers because they were a little bit smarter than average, I think, but for a lot of game studios, it was like farm it out to the cheapest place in the world to just get it done as a machine.
yeah.
But everything is changing in practically real time over the last year with art and collectibles and stuff. What is the change?
Uh, that's a huge question. Like the field of art, there's so many sectors and pieces. So I can talk about things as a concept artist, as a fine artist, and as a entrepreneur in game space. And there's a
Mhm.
convergence of several different pieces. Um, for anybody that's operating a game or running a game or part of a game studio, you know what I'm talking about. AAA art is a premium. Look at how many times the word metaverse comes up. All of that metaverse, almost all of those metaverses feature digital art, but somebody has to make. As so far as I know, there's no AI can't draw just quite yet.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work for commercial artists and fine artists, commercial artists and concept artists. NFTs is revolutionizing fine art, obviously. Why? Because for the first time ever, you have digital scarcity. And for the people reasonably new that may be watching, what does that mean? Well, it's this simple. When I started as a concept artist, I would draw with markers, right? I'm designing your next favorite spaceship that might be featured in a movie, in a video game. But when I finish, I have the original piece of art. That belongs to me, right? Or if I do a piece of art for Magic the Gathering, most of the artists from Magic when they started were oil painters. So you sell the
Hmm.
rights to Hasbro and they make the cards. But if you have that oil painting of Black Lotus, that's worth a ton of money. That's a unique one of one. Now, because of like Wacom tablets and Photoshop, nobody really, like 95% of your artists in commercial space in concept art are using digital art. But that means when that image is finished, it's a file. So John, your file and my file, it's the same thing. With blockchain, that's different. So if a concept artist like Emmanuel Shui, who worked on all of the Star Wars movies and Ready Player One, when he finished that digital art, he said, "This is my one of one that he can sell on super rare." That is suddenly worth money. Whereas before, your JPEG was as good as mine. That is disruptive for the individual artists.
That seems like a completely new incentive structure, new way of compensating, creating wealth for artists. Like, if you look at the game industry generally, right? Like, there's a few tried and true business models, but it usually comes down to either revenue participation, like royalty participation, which all depends on like the deal between the publisher and the game studio, or you can have equity participation. Either way, it's sort of a long process of trickle down before someone like an artist could participate in either of those. And they probably have to be at the
Yes.
company at the right time to really benefit from it. Like, there's a lot of variables where it may or may not work out. It strikes me that like this idea of an artist actually retaining like the oil painting or whatever, but
Yeah.
also the one of one, like being able to have that and to decide to part with it if you want. That's a really interesting opportunity for artists to, choose their projects wisely and then potentially have a lot more upside in that. Are you seeing that happening with artists?
Of course. Anybody that's in NFTs right now, if you're new to NFTs and you want to get into NFTs as an artist or a collector, you should be on Twitter, you should be on Clubhouse, you should feel the energy, and you should see what decisions artists make for themselves in this era. So if you are an artist, by the way, I don't think traditional concept artist as a position is going to go away anytime soon. There's a lot of great games that don't have to be on blockchain. You know, there's a lot of people that are going to experiment and try a little bit of, I'm going to mint this thing and sell it on Super Rare or Foundation. But don't fire me yet, Lucas. Don't fire me yet, Pixar. I still want to work for you. Because your biggest movie entertainment projects, I mean, look at those credit lists, right? Those are works of art, those movies, animations, games that still require 500 people to have the same vision, or 50 people have the same vision. NFTs, though, create something for the individual artist, if that person is willing to spend the time to commit to the community. And most of the time, if you have 10 hours of work for the day, you need to decide where you want to spend that time. Are you going to be promoting your brand and getting followers on Twitter and buying NFTs just so you can sell the NFTs? Or are you going to spend time honing your craft of becoming a better artist? That's the decision that our future and some current artists are making and will make.
So I think you made a couple of really important points and want to return to them. One of them was just the importance of community around these kind of NFT-based ecosystems. The other is that NFTs and digital collectible art can have a high level of relevance to games, even if you don't think of yourself as like a blockchain game. Like, it could be another avenue for monetization, creating a lot of interesting opportunities for your artists. So that's maybe just something to keep in mind. But, you know, when we started this talk, and you know, we get a lot of people from the game industry just trying to sort all of this out. Now, half that audience was probably like, oh God, NFTs again. I've heard enough about this. And we thank you for being curious enough to stick with it. I want to kind of talk about NFTs for a little bit, because what do you think the biggest misconception of NFTs is, just generally speaking?
I think there's a few. First is that it's a scam. You know, it's a scam. It's a JPEG. Why does that JPEG matter? Why was I pay so much money on that? Well, that's depending on your lens. I have my own lens, and let me try to answer that. For people that are shocked that Beeple's piece sold for $69 million, you have to look at who the buyer is and what the buyer is interested in. That buyer is Metacoven, right? He's very savvy. He runs his own fund. He collects a lot of NFTs. He believes he's buying into culture, that this is an important piece. It's an important piece of culture in this time. Our lives are becoming more digital. If you think art is a shaper of society, if you believe that the Impressionists, you know, Monet and Renoir, that their lives mattered, that they made the world a little better through the art, they believe this renaissance of art is the next evolution. Okay. If you're not an art collector, you probably won't get that. So, I mean, for the audience looking here today, do you collect art? If you collect art, then why wouldn't you collect digital art? It's scarce, it's authentic to the artists. If you don't collect art, then some of the art NFTs aren't for you. Then there's another group. So that's the art collector piece, okay? Some people buy NFTs just to make money. And
the speculators.
Yes, the speculators. And yes, you can make money if you know what you're doing. It is not the intent most of the time, the pure intent of the NFT makers to just make money. They believe they're making an authentic product. Because the second, if they said, if you buy this, I guarantee you it's going to go up in value 1,000%. This pack of cards costs $1,000. You're going to make 10 grand next week. That's an SEC violation. Congratulations. Somebody's knocking on your door. You're going to get arrested. That's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be, this is really cool. Do you want to participate in my project? If people assign value to it, it's a different thing, right? Now you're talking about sports collectibles. So there are people that want to buy NFTs to make money. There are people that want to buy art and culture. And by the way, the reason behind that is they want digital prestige in their presence, right? And there's other things too. I mean, not all NFTs have to be tens of thousands of dollars. Sometimes people just buy cool stuff and want to collect cool stuff. So biggest conception I think is that it's a scam, and that would be really unfair.
What what do you say to the people though that say, well, there's no scarcity. Like I can just copy all the images that
Ooh, I
people
love that
sold
question.
and save myself $69 million. Like what do you say to that?
I love that question so much. So then I would say Google Tom Brady rookie card, and you tell me what that piece of cardboard actually costs to make. It's just, I can photocopy it. I'll bet you I can get a printer to make a card that's just identical. You put it next to it, it's basically the same thing, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah. It's
Right?
not the real one. And you know it when you got that copy, you know it that it's
You
not
know it.
authentic,
Who?
right?
That's stupid. John, check out this photocopy of Tom Brady that I just got. Like, you're like, what? You spent $1, but if I told you I had the vision to bet on Tom Brady before I knew he was going to get drafted, he was a 6th-round draft pick, and I have that card. Like, that means you either I paid a lot of money for it, or I had the vision that Tom Brady was going to be a Hall of Famer one day. Right now, it's a different. So it is. Stamp collecting, same thing. You either have that collecting gene or you don't. So yes, your JPEG can be as good as mine, but if I go on distributed ledger that everybody can look at, and if I go in your OpenSea wallet and I find out that this image you use at your profile doesn't actually belong to you, I will slam you on Twitter and no one's going to listen to you. You are taking credit for somebody else's work. You know?
Now, why can't, I don't know, some big game publisher just do this and they'll custody everything for me and they can sell me digital artwork, save me all these gas fees and stuff? Like, why does it need to be a blockchain application to actually do this kind of collecting?
I feel you talk about.
I'm asking you the questions that people.
Yeah, I wanted to
and they're not understanding.
Oh, dude, well, I'll tell you, I'm going to quote our friend, Kevin Chu, the founder of Rally and Forte. This technology for the first time can align the player's interests with the developer interests. And that piece is unique.
You're coming back to community again.
I'm coming back to community again.
So let's talk about that. So earlier you were talking about just how important it is to have community. I see one of the really interesting things out there is just a much closer connection between the creator and the community of fans that they have for a particular piece of art or a game or whatever it is that they're making. Like, how should people be thinking about community if they're thinking about entering into this market, whether they're an artist or a project? How do you think about community even?
Community is so key to NFT. Well, I mean, it's really to games too. Where I think your gaming communities rally around fun competition. There's another layer in the NFT or blockchain game community that rallies around fun competition, but also value and money. I think it's very hard for you to have a successful blockchain game product or NFT experience without being authentic to that community. It's not most of your successful NFT drops. If you look and you search the team, look at the team, follow the team, you'll find most of them collect NFTs. They have to contribute to this space. Otherwise they're seen as just takers. Hey, you guys buy my $1 million NFT, buy my next $1 million NFT. But if I'm not contributing to the ecosphere and I'm not empowering artists and I'm not buying your NFTs, why would you support mine? Right? I mean, the reason Axie Infinity has the kind of fan base they have and NBA Top Shots has the fan base they have, look at the network value. The company only retains a small percentage of the value that game has created. Majority of the value is given back to the players. What a huge disruptive concept.
Completely different, right? Because in really all the market, like if you think of the art gallery market, for example, like I think art galleries capture 80-90% of the value of fine art transactions. And then you've got games, like look at how much games keep, whether it's the publisher or the studio or whatever. That was the really interesting innovation around some of these NFT based games like Axie, is just the idea that they actually are only capturing 5%. So they're allowing the recirculation of that capital within their community of fans.
Absolutely. I'll go a step further, and for my friend, I have a good group of friends that I hang out with, talk about this stuff, and when they're new into it, I use Facebook as an example. I mean, John, you and I chat on Facebook Messenger now and then. We share news articles, we connect with our friends. I haven't gotten a check from Facebook yet, but I feel like I've created there's a
I'm
value for
waiting
them,
for mine.
right? You know, dude, you know, who made Facebook into this, you know, giant? Well, we did, right?
Mhm.
They provided a good enough service for us to use it over and over, and it looks free, but our attention is highly valuable. Blockchain has a chance to disrupt that. What
Mhm.
if you get Facebook credit? What if you got one share of Facebook for every 100 posts?
Mhm.
I mean, that changes things, doesn't it?
Yep.
So the promise of blockchain is heading towards that direction. Of course, mass adoption is far behind. Of course, there's huge challenges. But imagine a gaming community that's incentivized for playing a game. Wow. Right? And artist community too. You know, one of you know, I'm jumping around a little bit, but it's the core theme here is if you incentivize the community, this is where it's been going. You and I use the word creator economy, right? That's
Mhm.
huge. That is huge. It should be that way.
Yeah, part of this. So here's some stuff that I think we can help people understand about NFTs generally, and really how different it is than stuff that came before. Is we're kind of talking about it around the edges of certain things, but it comes down to this idea of programmatic value exchange that's direct between the participants without the middleman. So you just gave this example of
Mm.
Facebook, for example. Like, the reason why we have all these ultra powerful online platforms today is at least partly because everything that came before was really hard to do. Like, so they created platforms, drew in a lot of people, built really powerful network effects around it, and they simplified connecting with other people, publishing content, all that stuff. So there's a lot of reasons why they exist. So we're now entering into a new phase of the internet, what I think of as one of the key factors of the metaverse, just to reuse that term, but it's what I call the re-decentralization of the internet. So the internet was started as a decentralized network. Web publishing, the domain name system, that's decentralized, meaning you don't have to ask anyone's permission. You just launch a website. But if you want to participate in any of these really large social networks, or you can go down a whole list of things, like, you really are there based on their permission, and what you get to do there is very regulated by them, and you may or may not like even how they regulate it. Like, that's a huge thing in the public sphere right now. But what's really cool about blockchain and then smart contracts, which is really the enabling technology that I'd like everybody to actually focus on first. The revolution of smart contracts is this idea of two parties can exchange value with each other without, like, a bank, a brokerage, an art gallery, a game publisher, whatever it is, it's in the middle. So that allows what you were talking about earlier, which is a much more community oriented structure where the value creator, the content creator, and this creator economy has that relationship without middlemen. I think that just changes everything.
John, you touch on so many things there, man. Yes, we in the blockchain space, you use words like trustless network. What does that mean? Well, it's an exchange of value, right? When there's that famous book, Homo Sapiens, about the history of mankind, it refers to money as the greatest form of trust that humans ever created. Yeah, money, right?
Mhm.
$100 bill. Everybody here knows what that is. My dog doesn't know what it is. If I give you 100, you believe it's 100, not 99, not 101, but it's $100 because it's assessed by the central banks controlled by the government. Satoshi Nakamura looked at it. Well, what's a different way to create value? What if you and I both believe in a code that shows publicly this exchange of value? That turned out to be a really revolutionary idea. So in Google, there's a phrase, don't be evil. If it's code, in blockchain, we say you can't be evil. That's a very powerful concept. The second point I want to touch on is what you said about the middlemen. Yeah. So, you know, the music industry, I heard the soundbite and I want to believe it's true. If you're a popular artist or musician right now, for every $100 you generate, what ends up coming to you as the creator is about 12%. That 88% is agencies, middlemen. It's all the people that it takes to create this thing. But 12%, that's not very much. In this, so what's happening through social media, people are now able to create huge fan bases for themselves. If you're a performer, if you're Katy Perry, if you're Ninja, right? Now, blockchain is just another way. If you already have that audience and that follower, you should be in control of your product. You should determine what happens. And blockchain is another tool for you to connect with your fan, and hopefully a good business model as well. So that's the power of disruption for the creators as it's built on this trustless network.
Yes, and then on top of that, it's highly disruptive for some additional reasons too, which is there's a lot of things you don't have to build anymore, right? You can imagine, for example, some big company that comes along and makes a marketplace, brings the audience in, provides people with the tooling for publishing and custodying and stuff. So I think a big part that people sort of also misunderstand is just how disruptive it is to not have to do that stuff. Like if you're just anybody, you can publish art, publish a economy for a game that doesn't require that. The marketplaces are already there. You don't have to have trust at all. Like normally a huge investment that you'd have to make before anyone would buy from you is that trust building. Like that's a huge expense, millions, tens of millions of dollars to convince people that you're trustable enough to do that. And even then, who knows if that's going to last? Like companies start stuff up and shut it down all the time. So the blockchain makes it immutable, it's permanent, it's transparent, you can look at it, you can see that it's really scarce, but then add to that just disruptiveness, like OpenSea's there, for example. Like I don't have to rebuild OpenSea. Such a huge advantage to anyone who wants to build in markets, like a game that wants to build a virtual economy, or someone who just wants to apply their craft of being an artist. Like you can go and do that without having to like do a bunch of special deals with online galleries or whatever it is that you'd normally have to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Community. I think a lot of your blockchain and NFT projects are being promoted through Discord and Twitter, and on that piece, that's all part of the community building. If you have that community, you are going to be ahead in this space. Right now, those are still centralized networks. Maybe there is a decentralized solution for a future Twitter or future Discord. We're early in the space. Right now, there are certain things that centralized systems can do better than decentralized systems, right? The speed it takes, for example, if it's a one organization with good leadership, they're just going to build some work faster. But we are really early in this space. I know there's going to be huge projects taking a swing and competing with our established giants of today, the Facebooks, the Twitters. We'll see what happens next.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought up speed. And yeah, centralized platforms frequently have like just a raw speed advantage. Why? Because it's their database. It doesn't have to have what you do in blockchain, which is replicate copies of it all the time, go through a cryptographic process of updating and whatnot. So that's a critique a lot of people have. And I think, again, people sort of skim the surface and they read blog posts about how inefficient it is, how much energy it uses, how it's pumping out pollutants into the atmosphere. Like that's another critique, and it's an elephant in the room. So we should talk about it a little bit. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's a lot of change. There's a lot of challenges to the next step of DeFi.
Tell people what DeFi is, just in case they're coming at this a little bit new.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of challenges. There's negative press around energy consumption. I'm not going to be a foremost expert on this. I believe the will of the people and the developers are in the right place. The proof of work system is not a great system. It is wasteful. Most of your modern blockchains that are competing against Ethereum, well, Ethereum 1, are going to a proof of stake model. That would include Solana, Flow, Ethereum 2. Those will be more environmentally friendly. you will see most of your more sophisticated NFT companies making concerted efforts to buy carbon credits, which hopefully offset any kind of carbon emissions. I know one of our partners, Gala Games, literally they bought a forest, because I believe the will of the developers are in the right place. There's going to be a lot of other challenges along the way, but specifically to environment, that's what's currently being developed right now, and everybody sees it. Nobody wants the negative press, and most people like the earth. Another challenge, so there's other challenges. There's something I'm seeing in the NFT community, is that are we moving from one walled garden of stuff to another walled garden? I don't know if that's worth going into here. Right now, there's a huge competition among protocols and marketplaces for the right content, and there is an exodus in gaming from traditional gaming going into blockchain gaming because of how much value is being created. It remains to be seen what happens next. Are these games fun, or are they intended just as money grabs? And you hear about projects where people raise a ton of money behind false promises and they go away. And there's a ton of NFT projects many of them are not experienced developers. These are 3-4 person teams with an idea, and they promise this great thing. Look at my roadmap. You're going to get all this stuff. If you buy this NFT right now, you're going to get a whole game. And then they realize I don't know how to make the game, and you don't hear from the developers again. There's some concerns around that.
Yeah.
So we will see.
So sounds strikingly similar to what we saw in crowdsourcing just a few years ago. Like a lot of Kickstarter games were started that never quite got over the line. There's a very notable kind of crowdfunded game that raised hundreds of millions of dollars and hasn't quite gotten there yet. So
those little feeding that content look cool though. I know what you're talking about.
The big difference here though is you've got liquidity. You've got liquidity sooner, right? Like, so you can opt out if you no longer want to participate in those, which is a little bit different than fund your game on Kickstarter. I feel like there's more skin in the game all around with these newer funding models around NFTs and building the community around it. But I do think you're right in one particular way, which is it just seems like we're at a fork in the road pretty soon, where like a lot of these high concept things where you can't really identify a super strong team behind it. Those are going to be tougher to persuade, just in the same way that like Kickstarter went down the same path. Like the high concept stuff without a team, without a lot of examples, just got harder to do. So I think there'll be like some games that have like a really cool concept and a team that sounds like they can pull it off. And then there will be like AAA kind of style games with like amazing visuals, and like it'll be like any other AAA game that you've ever wanted to buy, except now you'll get to kind of have a part of community ownership in them. I think these things that try to straddle and it's just like a white paper and nobody knows who's building it, that sounds like that's going to be a really tough place to be soon.
Hey, John, you know what? I'm looking at the time. We've been at this for 30 minutes. Neither one of us have said the word metaverse. That's got to be a record.
I said metaverse.
Did you? Okay, I missed it.
We can talk about like why does this even relate to a metaverse?
Well, when you said that, my first thought about overpromise and underdeliver, I literally think about the metaverse. And I might make some people mad by saying that, but hey, I've been running art studio. This time last year, we're juggling 25 projects. Call of Duties, PUBGs, Roblox. Roblox has been a great client of ours for 3+ years. That is that's our metaverse of today. But here's the thing: Roblox took 20 years to get here, right? And it was really over the past 5 years that they rocketed that thing. I mean, today I'm reading companies getting like $3 million of funding building a metaverse. I'm like, $3 million to build a metaverse. What do you want this metaverse to do? I mean, I think Mark Zuckerberg is spending hundreds of millions building a metaverse.
I think they just announced the other day they're spending $10 billion this year, and they expect that to go up next year and the year after.
That's incredible.
Right. So that's a lot of capital. Yeah. So I think if you
Yeah.
say you're building the metaverse, to me, that's kind of a funny thing to say because you're talking about building the internet. Like, so that's what the metaverse is to me. It's the next generation of the internet with a lot more real-time activity. It's re-decentralizing a lot of these creative processes. It's just simplifying the ability to make real-time content in the way that you might find some of these experiences in Roblox, but now it's going to be like publishing a website and you just can do it in it. To me, that's what the metaverse really is. It's a whole collection of trends and technologies that enables this stuff. It's not like a product that checks a few boxes, because I don't know how one company could ever do that. Even Facebook with the 10 billion, like I don't, and I think they have their own, goals around business models and advertising and centralized control that will be the ultimate master for that.
Yeah. I have so many opinions on that. Jon,
Throw them out.
who I love? One of our favorite clients over the years. You should try to get him, Neil Stevenson. Right?
Okay.
I mean, the guy wrote Snow Crash.
The metaverse man himself.
Created the word metaverse.
Yep.
I love talking to him about every world he creates is a metaverse. And he created the original metaverse. By the way, for anybody like watching this, he has told me that he will not publicly endorse any metaverse because that's his gift to the world, which we kindly respect.
I want to get him on a video now so I can pin him down and say, Neil, can't we just say it's the internet? It's the internet, Neil. Like you don't have to pick a product.
He's so cool. So we've worked on like IMVU, Roblox, Fortnite, my goodness, right? All of these metaverses, they do a specific thing. Most of them aren't sophisticated enough to really allow true creativity. I don't know if he's been on your show yet, but you should talk to Frederick about Core, right? I think Frederick is on something. Core looks really cool. And anybody in gaming is going to know Core. Anybody not in gaming, check out Core. Manticore Games.
Like taking Unreal Engine to try to do like an updated Roblox. Correct.
But you can't think of a metaverse as a place where you can do whatever you want, right? He wants to give you the toolkit for you to create really cool games. And then I can participate in the Jon game, Jon can participate in the James game, and the art is curated such that most of the stuff that you create, because the Legos themselves are cool, the building blocks are cool, the end product should look pretty cool. That slider bar is really hard to figure out for the metaverse. Do you want it to look good, or do you want players to have self-expression? Guess what? Most people's self-expression aren't that good. We follow our plans for Legos, but your thing that you come up with Legos usually isn't cool enough to be on a box. So if you want to give people true autonomy and creativity, you got to be prepared for that world to look like all kinds of crazy stuff. It's not going to look like Ready Player One, where everything is polished and amazing. But if everything's polished and amazing, that's a highly controlled product, right? Now you're talking about a World of Warcraft gameverse, everything's highly rendered and you have to limit the creativity. So just the word metaverse is so loaded. I almost feel like we need to have subcategories, creativity versus entertainment, right? Commerce and meetings versus gaming. It's so hard for me, like you, even $10 billion to have one metaverse like Ready Player One that's going to rule them all. We're pretty far from that, Yeah,
I don't see that happening. You raised the topic of interoperability, which is a super interesting thing to talk about. Like, to me, the interoperability, again, it's the internet. We have interoperability. Like, our computers don't have trouble connecting with each other and exchanging information, and blockchains can enable transactions of value on the internet. So that's interoperability. Sometimes when people think about interoperability, they have this Ready Player One fantasy, which is like everything is just sort of mashed up, and I guess maybe they are in their dream, it's very beautiful or something. But the creative control you just talked about in, say, a World of Warcraft, like that's a feature of World of Warcraft, not a problem to be solved. Like, oh, we need World of Warcraft to import my random costume.
Right.
And suddenly, I know we're talking about Miller today. Like, I'm Batman in World of
Right.
Warcraft. Not to me. I wouldn't want to see that personally. Some people probably would. I guess in Fortnite you can do that because they've kind of designed this ecosystem which the community accepts that. I mean, what would you add to the interoperability conundrum that people seem to have?
Well, the word interoperability as it pertains to blockchain suggests one product that can accept multiple forms of protocols. So it can either be a metaverse that readily accepts assets built on Ethereum, Polygon Matic, Flow, Solana. I'm not aware of any metaverse attempting to do this, but I believe it would be in the best interest of Coinbase NFT marketplace to accept as many protocols as possible. That shouldn't be confused and will not be confused with a metaverse, but it's at least a marketplace that can be interoperable. As I understand it, OpenSea is looking to integrate multiple protocols. Of course, they should do that. Rarible today can accept Flow and of course ETH. So that's a step in the right direction. Our interoperability as it pertains to games, no way. You can't. If you want it to be a good game, it's a very controlled artistic product. You can't expect me to bring my LeBron James into a football game and, well, maybe that's almost doable, but you'd have to get permission from EA and. Right, there's business challenges with doing that. There's IP licensing rights challenges to doing that, but most importantly, there's game function. Like NFTs. NFTs are really, it's a code that attaches to a digital asset. That asset may not be welcome in other projects.
Absolutely.
And I think you did a deal with Forte. I think Forte is attempting interoperability, but make no mistake, you're under the Forte umbrella. Within Forte umbrella, you have an interoperability, maybe.
Yeah, so you just pointed out a couple of the hard problems of interoperability. One is just the technology, like just getting everything to talk to each other. I mean, just getting the blockchains to talk to each other and do cross-chain liquidity or something, that's a tricky problem. And then you've got the issues of different, say, image formats and 3D models and the different poly counts that are appropriate in one environment versus, like, that's a hard problem. And then there's the design problem, which you kind of described it as fun. That's how I think of it too, right? Like, so you design games for fun and just allowing external entities to try to affect the course of your experience or narrative by importing things. I actually think it can be done if groups of companies cooperate with each other in their thought process, but it's not going to be like random fantasies of like, wow, now allows me to import my League of Legends costume or something. And then the third is economic alignment, right? Like, so another reason they won't do that is not just fun. It's like, what is their economic incentive for even wanting to permit that? That's another hard problem. So you have to tackle all of those before you can pull off any kind of interoperability. I think it'll be new kinds of game companies that do this.
You're so good at this, man. By the way, you and I, we both support game industry for a long time. I welcome to have these conversations with any of your developers that are part of your audience. This is really key stuff. And I was literally talking with the multi-billion-dollar mobile game studio, yesterday about what that means. Like, if I'm a multi-billion-dollar mobile game studio, what can NFTs do for me? And we talked about that. Well, I'm like, you can't expect that, oh, NFTs make money. Can we take the Candy Crush and add NFTs to it? It actually doesn't work like that. We went down this whole to explore a really solid MMOG. Can we add an NFT layer? And 2 days of discussions. It's not that easy. You're going to make a lot of people mad if you artificially insert a different economy into one that's already proven within this fan base. You're much better to start or build from scratch NFT or blockchain enabled economy in your game, that they just artificially insert one. I haven't heard anybody successfully doing that yet. You know,
Yeah, I think I think the big publishers are going to be challenged on a couple of fronts. One is just what you were describing, which is it's not. I think there are super compelling use cases for NFTs, but it's sort of like free to play was years ago. Like free to play has a lot of opportunity around it. 10 years ago, I remember being part of the early free to play revolution, and people were always telling me that that's not like real games and all these reasons not to do it. Of course, now it's over half the industry. And when a lot of companies were starting to take baby steps at it, their initial instinct was, well, can we add a free to play element on top of some existing game we've got? There actually was one or two interesting cases where someone navigated that successfully. I think one really interesting one was like Turbine figured that out with their Dungeons and Dragons online game. But like, boy, was that the exception that proves the rule, because almost no one figured out how to make that leap. Everybody had to kind of build games up where that economic structure was built in to the earliest stages of design. I think it'll be the same thing with these open marketplace-based games.
We'll see. I'm not tracking you, man. I think, you know, by the way, I worked on that. I did armor for D&D Online. That's old. You're going way back. I do see, because our name is Concept Art House and Crypto Art House, we do see a lot of projects before the rest of the world does. We're looking at least 4 concerted efforts to make AAA blockchain games. Some of those have been announced. Like, you guys, if you care about the space, if you're a developer, you came from AAA and you're like, I hear NFTs are hot, maybe I should pivot that way. Time Studios made a bet. Phantom Galaxies made a bet. There's a few other studios making that bet right now. It is a challenge, because any developer along that mid-tier, like if you're a $1 billion game company, it's going to be hard to pivot, right? You have shareholders, you have massive revenues you have to hit. If you're that middle-sized company, you have $20 million revenue, and you know you're making $5 million in profit. You know, what are you going to do to keep that business going and then still explore NFTs? Like, are you really willing to walk away from 20 million revenue and 5 profit to go into NFTs? That's a tough swing for a lot of developers. And then some people are like, well, you know, Axie's a really silly game, and you know, NBA, you know, it's just a collector's thing, and you know, I see some other like very basic free-to-play games, and you know, Hearthstone is prettier and more sophisticated than some of the other TCG blockchain games. We're early, guys. We're super early. Something for everybody right now. You know, I could talk more about that.
But no, I think you just said Hearthstone. Like, here's what I thought the really great innovation of Hearthstone was: they reconceptualized the collectible card game as a digital product. They didn't just transport the same exact gameplay modes. They actually used computing to automate and do a lot of processes that normally, you know, would have just been annoying if you imported a lot. So I think this is a reconceptualization process. Here's my big takeaway for anybody who's stuck through most of this conversation, and then we can kind of wrap it up. My own message is, like, I really think that this is a market that you have to approach with a lot of curiosity and just get rid of some of these preconceived notions. This is a lot of ways like free to play over again, like the economies, the game structures, the communities. It's going to be all the rules of this are being written right now, and people are figuring it out. And there will be some game systems that are not even really imagined currently. People just got to get out and start experimenting with this. It really is potentially transformative and new. Let go of some of those biases, and the technology is improving to address the ecological concerns, which I'm concerned about too. In fact, the technology is already there. You just can choose to use a layer 2 solution for ETH or Solana or any of these other blockchains. So, but just approach it with a lot of curiosity and imagination is kind of my message to anybody considering building a game in this space. What are your thoughts, James? feel free to add to that, or what do you
Yeah,
want people just to know about this market that we haven't
John,
covered?
by the way, I love what you said about curiosity. I love what you said about risk and curiosity. And crypto market does reward the bold. Your early crypto millionaires today are seen as, oh my God, you're pioneers. You backed Bitcoin in 2012, you're seen as smart. In 2012, you were seen as stupid. My yeah, so I appreciated. We're gonna take some risks. We think they're calculated risk, and yeah, there's a lot of excitement. So my one thing I want to share with everyone, and I'm gonna
Mhm.
quote. There's a guy that heads up our advisory board, Vinny Langham. He's the founder of Civic, early backer Solana. He's on Shark Tank South Africa. He's one of these early pioneers in blockchain. I remember meeting him at Bitcoin Miami, and we're hanging out by the pool. And he says, James, I've been in crypto for 2012, 2013. You got to do the South African accent. Look around. We're here at Bitcoin Miami. There's 50,000 people here. Not one person here knows more than 5% of what's going on. I'm like, wow. Like that soundbite really stuck with me. Here's this guy who's been in Bitcoin for 10 years, who's legit back to space in some of the hottest projects, telling me not just himself, but he doesn't know anyone that knows more than 5% what's going on. We're talking about trillions of dollar disruption in this space right now. And that window is not, so if you're thinking about the space, you're not early, but you're not late either, right? This is huge. So
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's like internet circa 2000. Like everyone had already built like the first wave of stuff. Amazon existed, but like the whole future is ahead of us. Most of what's going to happen is not even been written yet.
10 years, you're not the earliest, but you're still early if you get it now. I should correct that.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's a new space. So thank you, John. I mean, that's my thing.
Awesome. Well, James, this has been a super fun conversation. Congratulations again on the $25 million raise at Concept Art House. Yeah. Okay. I mean, we'll put a link down in the show description, the show notes. Check out Concept Art House and all the work that they're doing and follow.
Hey, I didn't promote our brand, but we've been doing 13 years. We are looking to rapidly grow. So if you like anything heard, we're platform marketplace agnostic. We're here to make real AAA NFTs and gaming products. We are hiring, and we are looking for great partners in this exciting space. So I will put that if you let me. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And because of Beamable and all the game developers that we're helping to onboard into much easier, live game services, we see game developers all the time. So I hope that a bunch of you are watching and you'll give James a chance to help you out, and maybe you can help James out as well. So there's so much awesome stuff happening here. I should add, like, if you enjoy these kind of conversations with people like James, subscribe down below, because these are the kind of talks we're putting out every week. I love talking about this stuff. It's a very dynamic space. There's a lot to learn, whether it's NFTs, digital collectibles, economies built on blockchain, but also just the creator economy, the tech to make it easy, game design. Like, I'm just super lucky that people like you, James, who've been willing to hang out with me and talk about this stuff, because that's a hell of a lot of fun. So thanks a lot for being part of this today.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate the time, John. Looking forward to doing this next time too.